welcome. David Levin here, Raising Your Game today. This is Tuesday, so we're talking about the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. So this week, I want to talk about Scottie Scheffler, the great golfer, top golfer in the world right now, and has been for a while. So I read this great piece in The Athletic this week. The story was his long run at number one, second longest in history now, at least per golfer. I'll explain that in a minute. And how it's still years away from Tiger's run when he was at his peak. So Scheffler, he's been at number one for 97 weeks now as of this writing, so almost 2 years as the top golfer in the world. Greg Norman had it for 96 weeks in a row back in his time. That's the third longest. So Scottie just passed him this week, and that was the big news. But Tiger Woods was number one for a total of 10 years, two different 5-year stretches with like a year between them. That's just impossible to get your head around. But there were a couple of things beyond that that really stood out for me in this piece. The main one was distraction. We talk a lot about distraction in our Raising Your Game Sports Academy training. It's one of the main problems people have with their mental game. And it's not usually something outside of us, like a noise or someone talking. It's usually internal distractions. It's our own thoughts and emotions and physical sensations pulling our attention away from being focused and present, which of course is what we need for peak performance. But this article really brought to life the wider range of distractions that can hurt your game, and also how they get more intense the higher up you go in your sport. They talked to one golfer, Jason Day. He was number one back in 2016, held it for about a year, but then started to slip back down. Within 2 years, he was out of the top 10. In 4 years, he was out of the top 50. And so far, he's not come back to where he was. And he said, I thought this was so interesting, the hardest part of being number one isn't the pressure you feel or the target on your back. It's the increase in attention. I talk a lot about the increase in pressure being a mental game killer, and of course it is. But he's saying it's also just the new levels of attention you get. More requests for interviews, more people interrupting you when you're out in public, more sponsorship duties. And it's not just that they're mental distractions either, which is the normal concern, that they make it hard to focus your thoughts and manage them in the big moments. It's also just that they are draining your physical and emotional energy, and you need those to stay sharp and focused mentally. So it's an indirect, but still very powerful sort of distraction. Now, of course, these kinds of problems only apply at a very high level, right? Most of us will never deal with the specific issues of being number one in the world, but it's still very helpful to broaden our definition of distractions so we can do a better job of managing the things that do hurt our game. So, for example, back to Scottie Scheffler. He's very proactive in dealing with these kinds of potential problems. The article says he limits his sponsorship obligations as much as he can, avoids the publicity and the hype machine other players get into. He minimizes his interviews and public appearances. He keeps his focus instead on his family and ensuring he's physically rested. Now, that'll be different for everyone, but what I love is the general focus on being super aware of what it takes for him to be at his best and then doing whatever it takes to maximize that, no matter what other people might think or expect or what pressures there might be to not protect those to that level. So then the other piece of that is to say that if you have ambitions for greater things as an athlete, don't wait to train your mental game. Distractions of all kinds are going to be working against you every step of the way, and they're only going to get worse the higher you go. These guys, story after story, the message is the higher you go, the harder it is. And if you're fortunate enough at some point to reach the top, that's the hardest of all because there's another whole level of distractions and pressure that come into play. So again, if you're shooting for greater things, the last thing you want is to get to the next level and have the new distraction stop you in your tracks, right? Stop your momentum. Or even get to the top and not be able to stay there because of the unique mental game issues that appear at that level. Now, wanting greater things as an athlete isn't the only reason to train your mental game. Most of the benefits over time actually apply to the rest of our lives. But if you are on that path, mental game training is an absolute must, and the sooner the better. And reminder, not all mental game trainings are the same. You specifically need to make sure you develop the core mental skills I talk about all the time: cognitive control, emotional self-regulation, and impulse control. And of course, those just happen to be the skills you learn in our Raise Your Game Sports Academy. I say it happened to be. I believe it's the only training available anywhere that specifically trains all three of those skills and guarantees results. Anyway, raiseyourgame.com. Learn more about that. But those are the lessons from this Scottie Scheffler article. Distractions are not only mental and internal. There are all kinds of things that can pull you off your game and stop your progress as an athlete. And the best way to keep that from happening is to be aware of what's going on for you internally. Pay attention to the effect things have on you. Be absolutely committed to doing whatever it takes to protect the things you need to perform at your best, and be intentional about developing the mental skills to put all those insights into action. All right, I hope that was helpful. I know we're not all top golfers, but these are still great lessons for all of us. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep up the good work. I'll see you next time.